Today's course is all about mastering the basics. We are covering the fundamentals of what it takes to be able to make sushi easily and accessibly at home. We are creating the building blocks that are going to allow us to move on to making more creative sushi rolls. But as of today, we are covering step by step. I'm going to guide you through every single phase, and we are going to create 3 different types of sushi rolls. We're doing a California roll, a hozomaki, and a futomaki. Now, the California roll, we are going to be making a tempura sweet potato roll. Our hozomaki, we are going to just do an avocado. It's 1 ingredient. And our futomaki, we're going to do a mixture of a load of different vegetables. So on my plate today, I've got avocado, mango, cucumber, pepper, smoked beetroot, sweet tofu, and spring onion. Okay guys, so there is 2 different ways that you can make your rice at home. For me, the most fail-proof way is doing it in a rice cooker. It's a case of washing, measuring your rice, putting the water in and pressing go. When it comes on warm, you then know your rice is done. But I know that that's not accessible to everyone, so I'm going to talk you through how to make your rice on the hob. So per 1 cup of rice, it's 1.5 cups of water. So for this course, you're going to need roughly 1.5 to 2 cups of rice, which is around 3 cups of water. You're going to pop your rice into a colander and you're going to wash that rice thoroughly until the water goes clear. Once the water goes clear, you can then transfer that to your pan and then you put in your water. Now, when you're doing it on the hob, the idea is that you bring the water to a boil. Once it's boiling, you then put your lid on. At this stage, this lid does not get removed until you're ready to use your rice. So you bring it up to the boil, you pop your lid on, you then simmer for 20 minutes. Once that simmer is done, you turn off the heat, you're going to pop it to one side, leaving that lid on, and you're going to leave it stand between 25 to 30 minutes. Now after that, you really need to cool that rice down completely. So the quickest way is just to leave that lid off and pop it in the coolest place in your house. And then we are going to move on to seasoning our rice. So there is a real fundamental reason as to why we are seasoning this rice today. Yes, it's going to make it taste better. However, rice carries a lot of bacteria. So the mixture that we're using, which is vinegar, sugar, and salt, that combined eliminates that bacteria. And if you are planning on eating this food the next day, it can only be eaten 24 hours after it is produced. But putting this mixture in is going to allow it to be completely safe. So for the 2 cups of rice we've got today, you're going to put in 2 to 3 tablespoons of vinegar, half a teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of sugar. And at this stage, the most important thing is we're going to add it in gradually. If you add in too much vinegar, you taste it as you go along. It's really important. It becomes really overpowering. If it's too wet, it's not easy to work with, and it's just going to be a disaster. So what we're going to do at this point now, we're going to grab our rice, we're going to grab our vinegar mixture. Now just make sure that you have really mixed the sugar in till it's completely dissolved. And at that stage, we're then going to slowly pour this into our rice and get it all mixed in. If you have a rice paddle, amazing. If not, any spoon will do. And we're just going to make sure that is all completely mixed in. This is something that you can really, once you have mastered the basics, you can get super creative. And any ingredient that you enjoy, that you love, really can go into this. So with a grain of sushi rice, if it is undercooked, it will have a white speckle in the center. And at that point, you know, it is pretty dangerous to eat undercooked rice. So it is super important that you are checking that it is completely cooked. So if you can see in the piece of grain that there is a white speckle in the center, that's absolutely not cooked. And sometimes if you are using a rice cooker, you can rectify that problem and you can put it back into the rice cooker, but 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, it has to go in the bin and you need to start again. So right now, We're just making sure the rice is really nicely mixed, and as well at this point, we are making sure that it is cool to touch. So what I'm going to do is just have a little taste. So it shouldn't taste too vinegary and it shouldn't taste too sweet. It should just be the perfect balance in the middle. It's a very subtle undertone of flavour, because the beauty of sushi is we can pack in as much flavour as we want, and that is what should overpower the taste of this rice. So what we're going to do is we are going to chop our veg. So if we take the mango first, we're just going to cut down one side. We don't need a lot, we're not making a lot. So for these ones, we're going to keep it really nice and vibrant. We want a taste of summer. So we're going to put in quite a lot of different fruits and vegetables. And for our larger roll, the most exciting part of that is that we can pack in quite a lot. So all we're going to do is just some really nice thin strips. We're going to keep the mango lengthways. And same again with our pepper. We're just going to take a little bit off the side. And again, we're going to keep it lengthways. So as I mentioned before, you're the creator, you're in control, you can decide what you love to go into these rolls. Now, the difference in 3 rolls is 1 has rice on the outside and 2 have rice on the inside, and 1 is larger than the other. So as we go through it, you can really pack in a lot of ingredients into some of them, and some of them you keep nice and simple. So cucumber preparation for sushi is quite different to cucumber preparation for, let's say, a salad. So what we need to do is we need to cut it lengthways, and we need to remove the seeds. So all you do is get a teaspoon, and you're going to go down the center and you're going to remove all of the seeds. Now, the reason we're doing that is sushi seaweed is pretty delicate, and we don't want to add any extra moisture into the inside of the roll if we can help it. You can have ingredients that carry moisture. You can have an ingredient that's in a sauce, but if we can avoid it, we're going to remove any excess moisture that we don't need. So remove the seeds. You can keep them, you can discard of them, but for now, we don't need them. And then again, we're keeping everything lengthways. So we're going to go for about 1/2 centimetre thickness. And for now, we're just going to cut half. So we're going to continue going down. Same again with the avocado. We just want strips of the avocado. So what I'm doing is I've taken a knife and I am following the knife all the way around the whole of the avocado. Going to twist it so then it comes out in half. Then cut lengthways. Remove the skin. So if you just put your thumb underneath, that skin should come off quite nice and easy. And again, we just want 1/2 centimetre thickness strips. We're going to do that on both sides. And pop that onto our plate. So for me, my inspiration comes from, I like to take inspiration from quite a few different cultures and putting together different textures and flavours. And the most exciting thing for me, especially around plant-based sushi, is to mimic what could possibly maybe be a childhood memory and sitting down and designing a dish that is something I used to love as a child, but can no longer, well, I can now eat it because I can create it. But for me, that's the most exciting part to what we're doing is, you know, you're the artist, you can create and design anything. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You go back to the drawing board, but gather as much as you can from different cultures and piece that together like a jigsaw puzzle, and you will be surprised with what you can create. So right now what we're going to do is we're just going to roughly chop some spring onion. There's no real method to this, it's just nice and thin. About 3 will do us. And once we've done this, we are going to go through how to do some tempura sweet potato. So in our first roll, we're keeping it nice and simple. And we're just going to choose one ingredient to pop inside. Our second, we're going to choose 2 ingredients. And our third, we can choose as many as we like, really. So don't be afraid to keep the green part of the spring onion. People seem to think that it's something that needs to be discarded. It doesn't. It carries a lot of flavour. And it's actually better for sushi to use the green than the white. So that's the last of our veg. We're just going to pop that onto a plate. I think Asian culture is pretty fascinating, and more often than not, a lot of what they eat are naturally plant-based. So using the likes of Korea, for example, the Korean flavors. Actually, Korea has their own type of sushi. The Korean flavors, they use a lot of mushroom, and the spices that they use is very complementary to sushi. So looking at those different, even, let's use India, for example. You probably wouldn't pair Indian and Japanese-inspired food together, but from a texture perspective, Indian cuisine is all about texture. So their pani puri, for example, that fused with sushi is an unbelievable combination. And it's thinking outside the box. It's taking inspiration and being inspired by these different cultures and what is naturally plant-based in their diet, and being able to put that into a new dish. So the next part for us is the messy part. So we are going to make some tempura sweet potato. Now, for ease, having a household fryer is beneficial. But again, I understand that is not accessible to everyone. So a wok is perfect. Wok on the hob with some oil. Only thing to be wary of is the heat of the oil. Having that amount of heat, it can be quite dangerous. So be careful around it. Be mindful of the hot oil can spit. Keep a fan on if you've got a fan above it, but it's an easy process, so it will be absolutely fine. What we're going to do is we're just going to peel the skin off the potato. Now there's 3 stages to tempura sweet potato. We are going to pre-cook the sweet potato slightly. We're going to fry it once, and then we're going to fry it twice. So what we're going to do is just take off the skin. We're just going to cut down the center. And then we're going to cut around centimetre strips. Now the reason we are pre-cooking this is if we were to fry this directly in the batter into the oil, the batter would cook, the potato would be raw. So what we're going to do is on a low light, whether you're using the hob or whether you're using the fryer, we're going to pop this in, and whilst that's pre-cooking, we're going to get on to making some of the other sushi rolls. So we're just going to pop that into the oil. You can set a timer so that you don't forget about it. It's going to take roughly 5 to 8 minutes. And we're going to leave that, and we're going to move on to something else while that's cooking. So to be able to make our tempura sweet potato, we need some batter. So you can make this flour yourself as a mixture of corn flour and plain flour, a little bit of bicarb soda. But today we're using shop-bought tempura flour that again can be bought from the any local Asian supermarket or online. We are going to whisk this with some carbonated water. The reason we're doing that is it creates air and it allows for the lightest of batters, and that's exactly what we want with the tempura batter. We don't want it to be heavy, we want it to be nice, light and airy. So we are going to take, per 1 cup of flour, it's around 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of water. But what we're looking for is a pancake batter consistency. So something in between of not too thick like an American pancake, something nicely in the middle. But again, as we did with the vinegar, we can always add, we can't take away. So we're going to add it nice and slowly. We do not want any lumps in our flour. So slowly whisk, keep adding. Again, we can't take it away. So we're going to start just adding it in nice and slowly. Giving it a good whisk. If you wanted to add a little bit more flavour in at this point, by all means, you can add in some paprika, some garlic, some chives, some sesame. Again, you're the creator of these dishes, so you decide what you want to be doing. So we don't want any lumps if we can help it, but as best as you can, we would like as little as possible. Perfect. So once that's done, we're going to put it to one side. And whilst our sweet potato is cooking, we're going to get on to preparing our seaweed. And I'm just going to talk you through the different types of shapes, sizes, what side of seaweed we use for different sorts of rolls. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing 3 different types of sushi rolls. For our larger roll, we're going to keep the seaweed whole. And as it's got no rice on the outside, you will notice that there's 2 different sides to this piece of seaweed. You've got a textured side and you've got a shiny side. For this particular roll, we want shiny side down on your chopping board and your textured side touching the ceiling. So your rice is going to go on the inside of this roll. For our other 2 rolls, use a knife, use a pair of scissors, I don't mind. You're going to just, the best way to do this is there is lines, if you look hard enough, on this piece of seaweed. Count the lines, so we'll do it together. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In the middle of the 3rd line, you're going to take your scissors or your knife and you're going to just cut down the center. So for the roll that we have a singular piece of ingredient on the inside, the shiny side of the seaweed is touching our chopping board, and for our other roll where the rice is on the outside, our shiny side is touching the ceiling. So whilst our sweet potato is cooking, which I will just check how that is doing. Okay, another minute or so on that. Now, just to get you ready and prepared for this next stage, what we are going to need is we're going to need our sushi mat. Now, to be able to do this, our strings need to be going lengthways so that as we roll up, the mat is malleable. Keep it as close as possible to yourself, and when you're putting on your seaweed, depending on what one we're going to do. So let's say, for example, we're going to do the one where we've got a single piece of ingredient inside. We want textured side facing the ceiling and our seaweed sits at the bottom of our mats. As well, prepare yourself a bowl of water. This is not to drink. This is for your hands. Sushi rice is very sticky and it can be quite difficult to handle. So my advice is I much prefer to wear gloves. I find it's a lot easier to be able to handle the rice. But having a bowl of water there just to dip your hands into is very helpful. But I will say is seaweed is a suction for water, and we absolutely do not want to get that wet in the slightest if we can help it. So little and often small amounts of water on our hands just to allow for the rice not to stick to our hands. So before we get on to actually creating the sushi rolls, your sweet potato should be ready now. Right now, the sweet potato is cooked between 130 and 150. At this stage, we don't want to add any colour. We are just slowly cooking the sweet potato so that when now we pop it into the batter, we can crank the heat up and we can get it nice and crispy. At this stage, we're going to cook it twice to get it extra crispy. So right now, I'm going to up the temperature to around 160 for the first phase. And then for the second phase, I'm going to put it up to 180. Again, this is transferable to if you're using a hob. You can just measure the temperature of the oil. So I'm just going to take it out of the oil, pop it in onto some kitchen paper on a tray. At this stage, if you want to let this cool down completely, absolutely, it can be very hot. So let it cool down completely before you then pick it up and put it into the batter. So what we're going to do is we're going to move and go quite close to this because it can get quite messy. I'm just going to move this just slightly. So what we're going to do is we're double dipping. So for this first phase, we just want a small coating. So dip it straight into the batter, nicely coated, and then directly into the oil. And you're going to repeat that for each piece. You're going to let it cook for less than 2 minutes because we don't want to cook it completely at this point. We just want there to be a little extra coating on the outside before we then move into phase 2, where we crank the heat up and we dip them again. So we're going to go for around 60 seconds. Okay, so we're going to take it out, the oil, each one, pop it back into the batter. And then we're going to go again. Now, remember at this point, we're cranking the heat up again. And this is the final time we are going to fry. Now, this is pretty transferable. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, if you don't like sweet potato, by all means, you can use any ingredient you want. You know, there's so many different vegetables, tofu, that will work perfectly with this technique. And then we're going to leave that for a couple of minutes while it gets really nice and crispy. So use this time, clean up your area, get yourself ready to go, and then we get to move on to the skill set. Now, some common misconceptions when it comes to sushi making is how hard it is to actually do it. Once we break this down and we master the basics of it's all in your hands. If your hands are in coordination, these rolls will just fly out. You'll become so comfortable with the movement that it won't even feel like a hard task. Don't get me wrong, you have to dedicate some time to be able to do it. But again, you are the creator, you are designing this dish, so you make it as hard, as easy as you want. If you just want an avocado maki, you can make that within 20 minutes. The key is, don't overcomplicate it. If you are not comfortable and you haven't quite completely mastered the skill set, don't overcomplicate it just yet. Keep it nice and simple, and then you'll learn to fall in love with the process, and then you can become a lot more creative. So we're nearly there now.
So how long have those been in for?
These have been in for around 2 minutes. And if they need to be turned round at all, we're just going to turn them over. And then I'm going to pop them down for like another 30 seconds. Where we're up to now is we need our sushi mat, we need it wrapped in cling film, we need our bowl of water, we need 2 half pieces of seaweed and 1 full piece of seaweed. The ingredients I tell you, if yours are different, you go ahead and you pop your own ingredients in, but we're going to get going on to the first one. We're going to start with our maki roll, which is the smallest roll we're going to go. We're going to build up on the rolls, so we're going to go maki, California roll, hozumaki, our larger roll. Right, so these are done. I'm just going to drain off the oil. I'm going to pop them into our pan and just pop them to one side for now. We don't need them for the moment. This is where the fun happens. Now, release the pressure. If it doesn't work out the first time, we are going to repeat everything twice. You've got 2 chances, but pause me. Pause the screen, collect your thoughts, try it again, and then press play on the video when you're ready to go on to the next roll. There is absolutely no pressure in any of this. At the end of it, I promise you, you will be rolling sushi, or you'll be an absolute master. We are going to take half a piece of seaweed. Now for this roll, we want the shiny side on the outside, so our textured side is going to face the ceiling. So we're going to pop it at the end of our mat, and remember, as I said last time, your string needs to be going lengthways. Going to just pop your hands in a tiny bit of water, and you're going to move your rice nice and close to you. So you're going to start with a really tiny amount of rice. Now, the beauty is you can add and you can take away. So if you mess up the first time, you need to add a little bit more rice, you can add a little bit more rice. And if you overdo it, you can take it away. So another misconception is people love to pile the rice into it, and it's just not the case. The smaller the amount, the better, because then you can pack in a lot more ingredient. But for this particular roll, we're only choosing 1 ingredient, so we need to be able to get that roll to close. So what we're going to do is we're going to notice on this piece of seaweed the lines. So there's 1, 2, 3 lines on this piece of seaweed. We want to cover that center section, so we want to leave 1 centimeter at the top and we want to leave 1 centimeter at the bottom for this particular roll. So as I said, we're going to take a small amount to start with, and we're going to start in the left-hand side of the piece of seaweed. So we're going to pop it into the left-hand corner, and we are just going to manipulate this across the center. Now, as I mentioned before, the rice is sticky, so as you go along, just rinse the rice off and go again. And you just keep adding, taking away, until you have covered that center section. Now you're looking for a rectangle shape in the center. And then you're going to choose your ingredient to go on the inside. So as I said, for this particular roll, we're only choosing 1 ingredient. I am going to go for a cucumber. So you're going to take it and you're going to pop it around 1/2 centimeter below center. So you're going to pop it in. And if it doesn't quite reach the end, that's absolutely fine. You just take a knife and you chop a little bit off at the end. And that's going to sit there. Okay, so now onto the technique. It's really important that your hands work in unison. So as your thumbs push forward, your fingers push back. And they need to talk to one another, because the bigger our rolls get, the harder it is to hold that ingredient on the inside. And that really is the most important thing. So it's like a little song in your head. If you keep telling yourself, as your thumbs push forward, your fingers push back, I promise you, with that method, rolling round, you will be fail-proof. Your rolls will always close. Paired with not packing too much rice in, we're pretty set up. So mat closest to you, seaweed closest to you, thumbs at the back, fingers in the center. So fingers touching onto our ingredients. So as I said before, as our thumbs push forward, our fingers push back. So we roll around once. So our thumbs push forward, our fingers push back, and we roll over once. Now at this point, we get 2 hands and we scoot across. And this is going to hold this into place. Now, what to remember here is we do not want to get tangled up in this mat. So we're going to lift it up. Now at this stage, I should be able to walk away from this piece of seaweed and it shouldn't move. So that's when you know it's perfect, it's in place. So you lift your mat up, again, thumbs at the back, fingers on your piece of seaweed, and you just continue to roll forward and take your 2 hands again and you secure that into place. And then once you roll this back, we should have our first roll of sushi. Now, we're going to do that one more time, and we can choose a different ingredient. So if anything didn't work the first time, what was it? Think about how you can do it differently, and we're gonna go for it again. So we're taking our second piece of seaweed, and we're gonna do exactly the same thing again. So shiny side down, textured side facing the ceiling. Our mat is closest to us, and our seaweed sits at the bottom of the mat. Wetting our hands just a tiny bit, and we're taking a small amount of rice. We're starting in the left-hand corner, and we are just manipulating this rice across the center section of that piece of seaweed. So as we did earlier, we counted the lines, and we're holding that rice in a nice rectangle shape in between those lines. It's important to keep the area nice and neat, because if it's not, the rice will carry forward, and you will see that when you cut the roll eventually. So as we did before, rice in the center section, and I am going to choose avocado to go into this. So different to how we did it last time, where we embedded the ingredient into the rice, we're just gonna lay this in the same position, but we're just gonna lay 3 pieces across around a centimetre below the centre. So exactly how we did it before. As our thumbs push forward, our fingers push back. Our fingers are protecting our ingredients. They are making sure that ingredient does not push forward and does not escape the line. So all we're doing is thumbs at the back, fingers in the centre. We're rolling over once. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at this stage, you should be able to pull this piece of mat back and it should not move anywhere. That is your key indicator that you're doing exactly the right thing. Pull it back more towards you, and then again, make sure you're not getting tangled up in this mat. You've pulled it back. Your thumbs are still pushing forward, your fingers are still holding that piece of seaweed in place, and then you continue to roll. And you secure that with 2 hands. Really add a little bit of pressure. It might feel like you're adding a bit too much pressure, but with this particular roll, because the rice is on the inside, we can afford to add a little bit more pressure to it. And that is our first roll complete. And now we're stepping up our game just slightly, and we are going to put our avocado on the outside of the roll. But technique doesn't change, fundamentals stay the same, and as always, I'm here to guide you through it. So, same as last time, shiny sides facing the ceiling, pop it down onto your mat, a little bit of water on our hands, a snowball size of rice, and remember, we leave a centimetre free at the top, and we go below the line a centimetre as well. So in the left-hand corner, fingers and thumbs are helping us push that rice along. And we want to have a nice, large rectangle. Use your hand flat, and you can press it down at the top so that no bits of rice are hitting that empty piece of seaweed. As before, you're going to pinch the sides of the empty seaweed, hands underneath, and you just one flip towards you. And it's in the perfect position. So same as before, we're going to cut the sweet potato into two. We're going to pop it in. Again, we're leaving the overhang of seaweed free, and we're just placing the ingredients just in front of that. And we can pick 2 more ingredients if we want. So for this one, I'm going to go for some mango. Just going to lay 3 pieces of mango inside. Tiny sprinkle of spring onion. And we roll. So, same as before. Thumbs at the back, fingers in the center. Claw shape in our hands to really push that ingredient back towards our chest. Overhang of seaweed, remember it needs to turn underneath the ingredient. So keep manipulating that with your fingers. We're not getting tangled up in our mat. Keep pushing underneath and roll forward, pulling that mat consistently back. Secure it into place, pull back, and we've got our roll. So we're just gonna pop our mat to one side. Avocado. So if you put the back side of the avocado on your hand or wherever you feel is safe to do so, you're just going to take off the top part. So the bits that are uneven at the top of the avocado, you're just going to slice a thin layer off, but don't discard it. It can still go into the sushi if it's in the inside. So again, with the other side, you're just going to take off the uneven edges and you're going to pop that onto your plate. Now you should have a perfectly flat surface area to work with. So what we are going to do is we're going to take a smaller knife. Now, as thin as you possibly can, we are going to go at an angle and we are going to slice this all from edge to edge on both sides. So we're not going to go too fast, nice slow strokes, but you want to make sure that this stays together. So one hand movement, don't go forward and back, just up and down, as thin as you can get it, and you're going to continue that across until you reach the other side. We're going to take sushi, pick it up with a knife, lay it on top of the sushi, and now at this point it is a little bit fiddly, but you can rectify it. We're going to pop the mat over the top that will mold it into place, so don't worry too much if it falls backward, falls sideways, it's fine, we can rectify it. So thumbs, and all we're going to do is, let's go that way. Starting at one end, you're just going to use your thumb and slightly separate them apart. Start at one end and just push it all the way across. Now, 1/2 might be enough, it's not usually. So we might need to now just go back in and just do a tiny bit more. So once our avocado is on top, we open our mat, we very softly lay that over the top. We don't put too much pressure, but we do apply a slight amount of pressure to really hold that avocado into place. Moving sideways motion on both hands, pull that mat back, and there we go. We've got our avocado sitting on the top. So now we have 2 different types of California roll. We've got avocado on the top and the one with just plain rice. Now, this can be done with a multitude of different things. It doesn't have to just be avocado. If you want to put mango on the top, if you like inari pockets, which we're going to use in our next roll, they can quite easily be laid onto the top. There is loads of different, you can actually lay sweet potato on the top of rolls. Again, you're the creator, you decide what goes onto the top, but get creative with it and choose different ingredients. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you know not to do it again. Okay, so if you're still with me, you've got to the best part of the course. We're on to our biggest roll, the most exciting one, where we can just pack in as many ingredients as we like. Now, the way I'm going to show you this roll is more for an aesthetically pleasing way of doing it, but there are two ways that you can do this, and I will talk you through that as we go on. So we are going to use 2 pieces of seaweed, but you don't have to. You can use 1. So we're keeping the seaweed whole, shiny side facing the mat, textured side facing the ceiling, and you're going to pop that onto your mat. Now, for this particular roll, we actually are going to fill the whole entire mat with rice for how we are doing it. But if you are only using 1 piece of seaweed, then you leave a centimetre free at the top. So, hands in some water, a large amount of rice, but I say large because we have quite a large surface area to fill. Real thin layer of rice. I mean less than half a centimetre thickness across the board. So you still want to see bits of the green popping through, but we want to cover the whole surface area. So going corner to corner, edge to edge. And we continue that across the whole section. We are not overfilling the rice on this. Okay, so this genuinely is just that when we cut it, it's going to look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. It's going to have a nice little rim of rice around the outside. But as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to do it this way. You can add the ingredients directly in here, or you can do what we're going to do, and we're going to take another piece of seaweed and we're going to pop it directly on top, and you're going to apply a little bit of pressure. Make sure that's nicely into place. And what you can do is take a tiny amount of rice and just put it a really thin line at the top. And this will just make sure that our roll definitely closes. So not too close to the top, but just a thin line. And now, again, you're the creator. You are going to decide exactly what goes into this roll. We're going to pack it in. So we're going to start with 2 pieces of cucumber. They're going to go just off center. 3 pieces of pepper, 3 pieces of mango, avocado next. We're going to add in some smoked beetroot. You can use any beetroot. You can use steamed, you can use roasted, you can use grated, anything. This just adds a really nice layer of flavour. And I am also going to add in some protein. So these are called inari pockets. They are a sweet fermented tofu pocket, and they just add a really lovely flavour. I'm using 2. I've cut them in half, and I am just going to layer that in the centre of the roll. I'm going to add in some spring onions and a sprinkle of sesame seeds over everything. By now you should be the master. You should be going ahead of me and you'll be absolutely amazing at it. So we're still going to do it together. As we've added a lot more ingredients, now more than ever, it is super important that we remember that our fingers need to pull this ingredient back towards us. So thumbs at the back, fingers real claw shaped around our ingredients. And we're going to turn over all the way once. If you remember back to the first roll we did, this is exactly the same, but instead of 1 ingredient, we've gone for about 10. So we roll that back, and then we continue to keep rolling forward. Secure it into place. And that is our final roll. So now we're on to the plating phase. This is completely up to you. You choose what size plate, what shape plate, how you want them to look, whether they sit up, whether they sit down. It is completely up to you. So we're going to start with our larger roll. Now, the sharpest knife you've got, the better. For this particular one, we're going to cut directly onto the seaweed, whereas when we move onto the one that has the avocado on the top, we're going to place some cling film over the top of that for ease. What you can do is you can add a little bit of moisture to your knife. So if you've got a little bit of water, you can just add a tiny bit of water onto the knife just so that there's ease when you're cutting through. Now, don't throw any of this away, but just so it looks more aesthetically pleasing, we're just gonna take off the ends of the roll. So a really small amount, we're just gonna, in a sawing motion, we're gonna slice off the end, pop it to one side. And we're gonna go for around, I would say, 1 centimetre thickness across. And you're gonna sawing motion all the way down to the other side. You should get around 6 to 8 pieces per roll. And then we can pop this onto our plate before we move on to the next one. So we can just place it down and we can stagger them. We'll go. Then we will move onto our smaller rolls and they will go standing up. So the best way to cut these is put them together. And again, exactly the same sawing motion. We're gonna take off the ends, pop them to one side, and then again, same amount of thickness, around 1 centimetre wide, centimetre in length. And you're gonna go all the way down until you get to the bottom where you just take a little bit off again. So the best thing to do with these is turn them over and line them up. So you've got 2 different flavours. You're gonna pop them side by side and then pick them up all in one directly onto the platter. So next we're moving on to our avocado roll. For this particular roll, because our avocado is sitting on the top, it will tend to move around a little bit. So to ensure that that is secured directly into place, when our knife goes through, we're going to take a piece of cling film, tear it off, and just lightly sit that on the top of the roll. Now, the key indicator here is we don't want to eat this cling film. So as we're cutting through the best we can, we want it to stay in a whole piece that we can then, once we're finished, we can then tear that off and there's no cling film left. That doesn't always happen. That's not always the case. So just ensuring that any little bits of cling film have been removed at the end. So exactly the same as we did before, we're just going to take off the end and then cut all the way down. Same thickness as before. Making sure that you also don't cut your glove off. If you've got a glove, it can happen that you will actually chop the end of your glove off and it will land in your food, which is not nice for anyone. So ideally, in the best case scenario, we should be able to pull this off in one piece. Discard, we don't need it, we can't use it again. Again, don't throw these ends away, pop them to one side, and then what we're going to do is pop this onto our plate. So 2, 4, 6. And then next we are moving on to our same roll again, but with no avocado on the top. So you don't, if your knife is sharp enough, you don't need to put the cling film on the top. But in this case, we're just gonna, again, an insurance policy to ensure that the roll doesn't fall apart. We're going to put some more cling film on the top. Again, because the rice is on the outside, there is opportunity for this roll to pull apart, and we don't want that. So this cling film is there as our insurance to make sure that when that knife meets the roll, it's still staying together whole. So exactly how we did before, cut off the ends, and we chop all the way down between 6 to 8 pieces. Just removing the ends. Peeling that cling film off, discarding it. Whoa. And then we're going to put it face down on the platter.
Coming in, Paul.
You've done this before, haven't you?
Maybe once or twice.
That's brilliant. I think it's mad. I never would have thought that the rice, I've never seen like that on the outside and how it would hold itself together. I would have thought it would just like all fall apart. Just watching what you were doing there, and I love these bits here. These are like the chef's perks. These are the bits that you can just go dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
Like the importance of the cling film on the mat. You know, there's certain things that, like, I suppose a takeaway for me, for someone that's never really, I don't mean like the actual like food takeaway, more from like just watching another chef cook food, is the importance of the cling film on the mat. The confidence that you have picking this up. Do you know what I mean? To actually say you're going to do this and that, and just, I would kind of think it's going to fall apart, but you could just literally just pick them up, you've put them down, you've plated them beautifully, you can see all of the different colours, the different styles, and even just like the uniformity of it. But as I say, you've done it so many times before. But I think it was just brilliant to see the confidence that you can actually pick this up and it doesn't just kind of fall apart in your hands and stuff like that.
I think that's the importance of mastering the basics and covering the fundamentals, that now that hopefully you've seen that, you'd be more confident in going to try it yourself. And
I think that's the thing, confidence is to have that confidence. And like you said there, is just to, and you said there, just practice and just practice and just practice. I mean, how bad that if there's a mistake, you get to eat it? Yeah. Because like you said there, with these bits here, they're like the chef's perks, but you were mentioning before, and you used to use those as offcuts.
Yeah, so one of the biggest lessons I had when I started my business is there was so much waste. And unfortunately with sushi, after 24 hours, if it's not sold, it's not eaten, it is waste. But one thing I designed to combat that was all of our offcuts became waste boxes, and they were sold to the client, and they were our best sellers. Everybody loved that you could have one box that had a mixture of absolutely everything, every sauce under the sun. It was a real medley of everything, but it really was everyone's favorite. And at the same time as you creating a product that everyone loves, you're combating a real problem that every kitchen wants to combat.
And that's the thing, like you say, waste, we're really conscious now of sustainability and of waste of food. And it's really cool because like you see this and people would probably turn around and say, yeah, but what about those bits and pieces? But you've just cured that. Well, one, I suppose if you're doing it at home, you're going to eat it anyway. Two, it gives you a chance to practice. And if you don't get it on the first cut, you might get it on the second one. Sharp knife, really important.
Very important.
Gloves. Would you recommend?
For me, it's vital.
Just because
there's nothing more annoying than when you're trying to do something and it's sticking to your fingers, you're putting your hands in the water, and then the water is transferring to the sushi, and everything becomes a bit of a wet mess. And I know it's not massively sustainable. So from that perspective, it's definitely a downfall, and the cling film as well. Unfortunately, some things can't be helped. For me, I find it way easier. I find it more streamlined. I don't incur a lot of problems in that sense of things going wrong. And
final thought is, I just can't wait to actually dig into this. So do you want to get a little perk? Go on in.
Maybe one of those and one of those.
I'm just going to just jump in. So in this one we have, this is the avocado, this is the
sweet potato.
Okay. Oh. I love that. The rice is kind of almost creamy in texture and in taste, and then you get that lovely sweetness coming through from the sweet potato, and there's a really nice texture going on as well. Yeah, I'll just take that one, please, and I'll take your off-cut boxes if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So very much. It's brilliant. I'm sold on it. So Chloe, listen, I'm going to leave you, and thank you very much. It's been absolutely fantastic, and for me, it's been a real learning curve as well. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.